You spent 35 years being the engineer, the teacher, the manager, and then one day you weren't. And nobody warned you that the hardest part of retirement wouldn't be the money. It'd be looking in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back. My name is Rich, and I spend way too much time thinking about why so many retirees with plenty of money are still miserable in retirement. If you're someone who worked your whole life building a career, a reputation, a sense of purpose, and now you're staring down 20 or 30 years wondering what comes next, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing, most financial advisors won't tell you. The biggest threat to your retirement isn't running out of money. It's running out of identity, and the two problems are more connected than you'd think. Because when you lose your sense of self, your financial decisions, your spending, your giving, your risk tolerance, all of it gets distorted. Today we're going to talk about what the research actually says, what the math looks like, and what you can do about it this week. Look, there's a common belief in the retirement planning world that if you just hit your number, 1 million, 1.5 million, whatever your advisor told you, you're set. But here's what most retirees don't realize. A 2023 study from the Employee Benefit Research Institute found that nearly 46% of retirees reported feeling a significant loss of purpose in their first year of retirement, and the American Psychological Association has documented that this identity disruption is one of the leading predictors of poor financial decision-making in the retirement years. So yes, we're going to talk about Roth conversions and RMDs and Social Security timing, but we're doing it through the lens of the psychology that's actually driving your money decisions. Because if you don't understand this, the math doesn't matter. Number 1, the identity cliff, and why it hits your portfolio first. Let's start with something you've probably never heard in a financial planning meeting. Psychologists call it the occupational identity crisis. For most Americans who retire after age 60, their career wasn't just what they did, it was who they were. Their schedule, their social circle, their sense of competence, their daily dopamine, all of it was tied to that job title. Now follow me here. The day you retire, all of that gets ripped away simultaneously, not gradually, all at once. Think about someone like Tom, a retired engineer from Ohio, $1.1 million in his 401k, Social Security locked in at 70, no debt. On paper, Tom's situation is a home run, but in the first 6 months of retirement, Tom started making bizarre financial decisions. He withdrew an extra $40,000 from his IRA to buy a boat he didn't really want. He made 3 impulsive donations totaling $15,000 to organizations he'd never supported before. He nearly cashed out a CD early, eating the penalty, just to feel like he was doing something. His financial advisor was confused, but his therapist wasn't. Tom wasn't spending money, he was spending meaning. Therefore, every financial decision became a way to fill the identity vacuum his career used to occupy. This is where it gets really interesting. AARP's 2022 retirement survey found that retirees who reported strong occupational identity attachment were 2.4 times more likely to overspend in their first 3 years of retirement compared to those who had developed outside interests before retiring. We're talking about people who worked hard, saved well, did everything right, but they never thought about what they were retiring to. They only thought about what they were retiring from. Now you might be thinking, I'm fine, I have hobbies, and maybe you do. But here's the thing, a hobby you do on weekends is very different from an identity anchor that fills 50 hours a week. Golf twice a month doesn't replace 30 years of being the VP of operations. Number 2, the spending shift nobody prepares you for. Here's what most retirees don't realize. For 35 to 40 years, your entire financial identity was built around accumulation. Save more. Spend less, grow the account. That wasn't just a strategy, it became a moral framework. Spending felt wrong, saving felt virtuous. Then retirement hits and suddenly you're supposed to flip that switch completely, but your brain won't cooperate. Fidelity's retirement research shows that the average retiree spends 20% less than they safely could in their first decade of retirement, not because they don't have the money, but because they can't bring themselves to touch the principal. They watch their friends travel, their grandkids grow up, their bucket list collect dust, all while sitting on a pile of money they're terrified to spend. Let's do some math. Take a retiree with $1.2 million at age 65. The widely used 4% safe withdrawal rate would give them $48,000 a year to spend from savings on top of Social Security. Say their Social Security is $2,100 per month. That's $25,200 a year. Combined, they're sitting on $73,200 per year in income. But if they're only withdrawing 2.5% because they're afraid to spend, that's only $30,000 from savings, dropping their total annual income to $55,200. Therefore, they're leaving over $18,000 a year of their own money on the table every single year. Over a 20-year retirement, that's $360,000 in unlived life. The psychological term for this is loss aversion amplification. When your identity is already under threat from retirement, your brain doubles down on financial caution as a coping mechanism. The portfolio becomes the last remaining scoreboard. Watching the number go up is the last place your brain can feel like it's winning. Number 3, how the identity crisis distorts your Social Security decision. Now here's where this gets really costly. The retirement identity crisis doesn't just affect your day-to-day spending. It directly warps one of the biggest financial decisions of your life: when to claim Social Security. The SSA's own data shows that the majority of Americans, over 55%, claim Social Security before their full retirement age. Many claim at 62, and here's what that costs them. If your full retirement benefit at 67 is $2,500 a month, claiming at 62 locks you in at roughly $1,750 a month. But if you wait until 70, that benefit grows to about $3,100 a month. That's a difference of $1,350 per month. If you live to 85, which is increasingly common, especially for women, the total difference between claiming at 62 versus 70 is over $200,000. Therefore, the timing of one decision can be worth more than most people have in a savings account. So, why do so many people claim early? Here's what most retirees don't realize. It's often not rational. It's emotional. When your identity is in crisis and your paycheck just stopped, the Social Security check feels like a lifeline. It feels like proof that something is still coming in. It fills the psychological void left by the paycheck. But claiming early because you're emotionally uncomfortable with the transition is one of the most expensive mistakes a retiree can make. Now, to be fair, there are legitimate reasons to claim early: health concerns, a shorter life expectancy, an immediate income need, or a strategic plan for a lower-income spouse to claim first. This isn't about one size fits all. It's about making sure you're making your decision with a clear head and a stable identity, not because you're scared. Number 4, the RMD trap, when the IRS forces the identity issue. Here's something nobody talks about in the context of retirement psychology. Required minimum distributions are, for many retirees, the moment the identity crisis peaks. Under current IRS rules, once you hit age 73, the government requires you to start pulling money out of your traditional IRA and 401k, whether you want to or not. For someone with a $1 million IRA at 73, the RMD is roughly $37,000 in the first year. But for the retiree still clinging to their accumulation identity, the one who's been watching that number grow for 4 decades, being forced to take money out feels like a violation. And that psychological resistance leads to expensive mistakes. Instead of planning ahead of the RMDs with smart Roth conversions, many retirees ignore the issue entirely until the government forces their hand. Therefore, they end up getting pushed into higher tax brackets right when their Medicare premiums are also income sensitive. A double whammy called IRMI that can cost an extra $2,000 to $12,000 per year in premiums. This is where it gets really interesting, because the fix is actually straightforward if you start early enough. Roth conversions in your 60s, when you're in a lower bracket before Social Security and RMDs stack up, can save tens of thousands in lifetime taxes. Let's say you convert $50,000 a year from your traditional IRA to a Roth between ages 63 and 72. You pay taxes now at, say, a 22% rate, but you avoid potentially paying 32% later when RMDs hit during peak Social Social Security income. On a $1.2 million IRA, that proactive strategy could save $80,000 to $120,000 in taxes over a 20-year retirement. The problem? Making this decision requires you to willingly watch your IRA balance go down in the short term. For someone in identity crisis, that's psychologically brutal. But the retirees who get this right are the ones who have separated their self-worth from their account balance early enough to make rational long-term choices. Number 5, rebuilding identity, and what that does to your financial plan. Okay, so now we know the problem. Let's talk about the solution, because this is where most retirement conversations completely drop the ball. Look, I'm not your therapist, but I am someone who's watched hundreds of retirement income plans succeed or fail, and the single biggest variable I've identified isn't asset allocation. It's whether the retiree has rebuilt a sense of identity and purpose before they make their big financial moves. Here's what the research shows. A 2021 Harvard study on retirement found that retirees who had identified at least 3 non-work sources of identity, things like mentorship, creative work, community involvement, teaching, or caregiving, before they retired were significantly less likely to make impulsive financial decisions in their first 5 years of retirement. They were also more likely to spend at sustainable levels, actually using their money on experiences and people they cared about. Think about what this means in dollars. A retiree with $800,000 who spends at 4%, $32,000 per year, consistently for 25 years, adjusted for inflation, lives a rich, full retirement. But a retiree with the exact same portfolio who spends erratically, $12,000 one year, $75,000 the next because of an emotional spiral, blows up their plan within 15 years. Therefore, the math of retirement income is inseparable from the psychology of retirement identity. Now follow me here. Here's the practical playbook for rebuilding identity before or during retirement. 1. Part-time or consulting work in your first 1 to 2 years. This is not about the money. It's about maintaining structure and competence while you build new identity anchors. The Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances shows that retirees who do any paid work in their first 2 years of retirement have measurably better financial outcomes in years 3 through 10, because their decision-making is more stable. 2. Structured giving and legacy planning. One of the most powerful identity replacements I've seen is retirees who transition their sense of competence into a strategic, charitable, or legacy mission. This isn't just feel-good stuff. Using QCDs, qualified charitable distributions, from your IRA after age 70 and a half allows you to satisfy your RMD without it counting as taxable income, capping at $105,000 per year in 2024. For a retiree in a 24% bracket, a $30,000 QCD saves them $7,200 in federal taxes while funding something they care about. That's identity and financial efficiency working together. 3. Annuity flooring for psychological safety. Now, I know the word annuity makes some people run for the hills, and look, there are bad annuity products out there. But here's what most retirees don't realize: a simple income annuity. Not a variable or indexed annuity with 40 pages of fine print, but a straightforward single premium immediate annuity can be a powerful identity stabilizer. Think about this. A 68-year-old who puts $200,000 into one of these today might get $1,200 a month for life, guaranteed. That's not a great investment return on paper, but it completely eliminates the anxiety of asking yourself, am I spending my portfolio too fast? Therefore, the remaining $600,000 in their portfolio can be invested more aggressively and spent more freely because the floor is covered. This is called the bucket strategy with a guaranteed base, and it's one of the most psychologically effective retirement income approaches out there. Number 6. The action plan. What you can do this week. All right, we've covered the psychology. We've covered the math. Let's talk about what you can actually do right now. Step 1 this week, the identity audit. Write down 3 answers to this question. Who am I when I'm not working? Not hobbies, identity roles. Things like, I am a mentor, I am a maker, I am a connector, I am a caregiver. If you can't answer this question with confidence, that's your signal to work on it before you make any major financial moves. Step 2 this week, run your Social Security break-even. The SSA's website has a free calculator. Go to ssa.gov and run the numbers for claiming at 62, 67, and 70 using your actual benefit estimate. Then look at your health history, your family longevity, and your income needs. But here's the key. Don't make this decision during a period of emotional stress. The data should drive the timing, not your anxiety. Step 3 this week, check your Roth conversion window. If you're between 60 and 72 and you have a traditional IRA or 401k, talk to a fee-only financial planner about whether partial Roth conversions make sense before your RMDs start. The sweet spot for most retirees is converting up to the top of the 22% or 24% bracket each year. Therefore, you build a tax-free pool of money for later in retirement when taxes tend to be higher. Step 4 this week, build your income floor. Sit down and add up what your guaranteed income will be in retirement, Social Security plus any pension if you have one. Compare that to your essential monthly expenses, housing, food, healthcare, utilities. If the guaranteed income covers your essentials, your portfolio is purely a lifestyle and legacy tool. That reframe alone changes how people think about spending. If there's a gap, that's where the conversation about annuities, dividends, or bond ladders comes in. Here's the bottom line. The retirement identity crisis is real, it's documented, and it's quietly draining the financial plans of some of the most prepared retirees in the country, people who did everything right and still find themselves making decisions from a place of fear and confusion instead of clarity and purpose. The good news? You're not starting from scratch. You built something real over 35 years. The skills, the judgment, the wisdom, none of that disappears when you hand in your badge. But it does need a new place to live. Therefore, the most important retirement planning work you can do right now isn't in a spreadsheet. It's answering the question, who are you becoming in this next chapter? Get that answer right and the money stuff, that becomes a lot cleaner, I promise. If this video helped you think about retirement differently, hit that thumbs up and drop a comment below telling me, what's one non-work identity role you're leaning into in retirement? I'll see you in the next one.